Hello.
Okay, there we go.
Ah, there he is. Hey,
Good to see you,
good
buddy. Hey, I
morning.
invited my son and Brandon Adams to spend a few minutes with us
Yeah.
also because they're involved in all the stuff we're doing and talk as far as trends and things like that. They're going to give some input.
Yeah, I love it. And hey, both of you guys, if you want input, just like Kevin, you could just say, hey, call out either one of them. Also, love to get feedback in the chat bar. Everybody here knows of you, Kevin. So thanks for jumping on today.
You
Super
bet.
appreciate. Hey, by the way, everyone that's on here, if you could give me a quick, if you have you've been lucky enough to get a Kevin Harrington endorsement, can you give me a hand up on the chat bar? All right, so we got a bunch of hands up here. Awesome.
Good.
If any of
Awesome.
you have not, well, let me know and we'll talk about if there's a possibility of an option for you. Okay. All right, Kevin, you ready? I got a bunch of questions. We're going to go fast and furious at these.
Okay. Hey,
right.
do we know, have you seen, is Brandon or Brian on?
Yeah, both of them are on here. Yep.
Okay. Hey, guys.
Yep. Hey, Brandon.
What's
hey,
up?
Okay.
We're here.
All right. So here we go.
All right. So the first question is, Kevin, what are the most important factors you consider before either acquiring or investing in any company today, knowing what you know in 2025?
Right. Good question. So I'll start by saying, over the years, we've done tons of startups. People bring me an idea, they have a product, and hey, let's do something, right? So that's a little different than what I'm going to talk about here because we are a startup company. We finance companies that have zero sales. And literally, I mean, I've taken people with napkin ideas, created the engineering, did the tooling, did the manufacturing, the inventory, the infomercial, put it on TV, and we do hundreds of millions of dollars. That's one side of my business, and it's a high risk, high reward. We fail two out of three times, 3 out of 4 times. You got to have a good stomach for that kind of business because 2 out of 3, you just walk from everything and, many months of your life. But if I'm looking at an existing business, I like to see that they have identified a scaling technique. In other words, I don't want to invest and just see a flat line in terms of their growth. I want to see that, and many times companies come to us and they say, look, if we just had an extra couple $100,000, we could put it into marketing, get more customers, build our business. So, okay, let's look at the CAC, the customer acquisition cost. What's your CAC? So if they say, what's a CAC? Or I don't know what the customer acquisition cost is, then, boom, boom, boom. So that's not a good thing if I don't know what I'm dealing with in terms of getting customers. And the other thing is two metrics we look for. If you have an identified customer acquisition cost that's reasonable, and then it also ties into the lifetime value of the customer, what is the average order value or the lifetime value? And if those numbers are making sense and we can use money to go get more customers, that is a good thing for us to do. So the other thing, not everybody has all their numbers figured out and the CACs and the AORs and all of that. But I think in general, I invest in companies that are looking to scale and scale geometrically, not just using. I think we used to say, I don't have a multiplication mark on my calculator because I don't just multiply. I like to geometrically grow. So I mean, we invested in a little company in India. They had 3 locations, and boom, they used the money to go to over 100. They 10x'd our investment, And, so I guess just final thoughts from me is that I want to know also the use of proceeds, because if I'm putting in 250,000, and this happened to me a couple of years ago, it went right to paying a guy his salary of 1.5 million, his $500,000 car for him, his wife 350 grand, a car for her. And there was no way we were ever going to make money and ever get our money back, but we didn't know all of that before we got into it. So I want to make sure that there's a path for a return on investment.
Yeah. When do you decide, Kevin, to cut your losses and just say, you know what, I gotta move on? And do you build in when we do deals, we put in like a divorce clause, like, hey, if this doesn't work out. So tell me, what is something you were like, without sharing exact details, like, I'm out of here, we're done wasting time and energy?
Yeah. I mean, in the product world, in the old days, we got so involved with our products and believed in them, and we would just spend way too much time on them after we should have walked. And so that's a very good question. So I mean, when we launch a product, we want to make sure before we walk from it that we've attempted to fix the couple different things that I just talked about, lower the customer acquisition cost. If I go spend 20 grand in media on a product and only brings in 10 grand, I'm losing money. And it doesn't make sense to go spend 100 and bring in 50, because you're losing. So what you have to do before you move forward is change something. And so change the creative, change the price point, change the payment plan. I mean, we've taken, I'll give you a good example. We did Billy Mays' last infomercial. It was a product called the Dual Saw. It had 2 rotating blades that counter rotated, but it was a powerful product. We literally cut a car in half with the Dual Saw. We put Billy in a steel box and he cut himself out. So we did amazing demos, but it was expensive. So we argued a little bit on the front end. How soon do we put the first call to action? And Billy, he said, look, I want it right up front. Let's get it, it's a 30-minute show. Let's hit it around 8 minutes in. And so, because this is a great product, let's not wait too long. The show tested 10,000 in media, 10,000 in sales. We're losing money. So we looked at the show and I said, there's a problem here. It's an expensive saw. We have a segment in the show that Billy didn't want in the first segment before the first call to action. And it was about looking at all the competitors in the marketplace. And it was a 2-minute segment. We went, here's one that you can buy at Home Depot, but it doesn't have this. And here's one that doesn't have that. And once we put that into the first segment before the first commercial, sales tripled, because people at the end of the first commercial, they're like, I'm really not sold yet. What else is out there? I better go to Home Depot before I go spend $180 on this saw. So the bottom line is we were able to correct that, take it to the moon. It went on to do hundreds of millions of dollars. And some people might have walked after the beginning. So we always do tweaking and positioning and testing and price testing. And sometimes, hey, if you try to get 159 in a one pay, 10,000 in media might bring in 10,000 in sales. But if you do a 4-pay, $39.95, it might double your sales, and now you got a profit. So you got to keep testing. But I have a saying. We like to test before we invest big money. So don't go spend hundreds of thousands or millions or whatever. I mean, we literally can test sometimes for as little as $500 on a Facebook or Meta ad, right? So, I think that, test before you invest. And then I also, I know I've used this statement before, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but Winston Churchill said success is being able to go from failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm. Okay. And so, because, he's a wise guy. You're not going to hit a home run every time. You got to accept the losses and move on.
Yeah, that's great. So if you were to say, you know what, Mike, I have these 3 magic secret sauce, like these 3 pills. I always look at every deal and say, if I could do this, this, and this, we could probably make magic. What's your first core three things?
In terms of what I would look for
Yeah. To
in
know
a
that you
product?
could take it from an opportunity to a good return on investment for
Okay,
yourself.
so I'll give you my couple things, and then I want Brandon and Brian to chime in here. But the first thing I look for is, it does the product is there a magical transformation and a problem solving? So does your product or service solve a problem in a unique fashion such that no other products or service solves that problem in a similar fashion? So that's one. I'll say it again. Does your product or service solve a problem in a unique fashion such that no other product or service is solving that same problem in a similar fashion? Right. So, and so that's something that we look for. Then I also look for something that has magical transformation. And because people love to see before and afters. In Proactive Skincare, terrible acne, clear skin. Tony Little Fitness, 180 pounds overweight, down to 120 after the ab isolator, right? So magical transformation. And then the last thing, and this will lead into maybe Brandon, is can we brand this company? Can we shoot low-cost videos, get them out there? Because the old days of putting things on TV, I did for 40 years, is very expensive. You can't afford to do that anymore unless you really know the business. And we're still able to do it here and there, but we had to get out of that business full time. And so the question is we took a husband and a wife, were two lawyers working for an insurance company, and they were giving out big payouts to their buddy lawyers. And they're like, geez, we're getting a salary. We got to get on that side of the table. So they hung up their shingle and said, hey, we're the lawyers that used to work for insurance. Call us personal injury, right? Goose eggs, nothing, no leads, no nothing. And they're like, what's wrong? Because you just started. People go to the internet, so they hired us. We shot dozens and dozens and then more than 100 videos. And now we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in media, and they're getting somewhere between a 4 and a 5 time return on that investment after we've now peppered the market with all their stuff. So Brandon, I see you look like you're getting ready to talk. So go ahead.
Yeah. So on top of that, we look at recurring revenue. How can we acquire a customer, and how can that customer pay us for months to come? And what is the lifetime value of a customer? And the example Kevin gave is around content. We test before we invest more money. We create variations of content. And I'll give you an example. We have a company or a product right now called Happy Toilet. And this is crazy. Kevin and I were at a pitch competition. They pitched us. We did a deal with them, and we're equity owners. And we tested ads. Happy Toilet is a thing you put in the back of your toilet. It cleans every time you flush. It'll clean. And they have tablets. And so we tested an ads with various demonstrations, video assets. And right now we're getting a 4-to-1 return on ad spend. So for every dollar that we put in, we get $4 back. Now,
wow.
Once you acquire a customer, the biggest thing we look for is how can we increase the cart life value, but also introduce other products. So for this product, not only are we selling the actual toilet cleaner, we're selling the tablets that can be on auto ship every couple months. So it's recurring revenue. Plus, they have other products they're going to introduce to these customers. So one thing I'm going to add to that is for everybody watching, when you acquire a customer, how can you focus more energy on providing more products and services to that customer? Because a lot of people focus on, okay, how do I get more customers? That's great, but how can you maximize the lifetime value of that customer? In this case, with Happy Toilet, it's a product, but this could go for any industry.
Yeah. Hey, Brandon, another question for you. So you like anytime you're investing to see, tell me if I'm right or wrong, do you like to see how fast you could either get a subscription or membership model into that?
Yeah, anything, when we put money into anything, we want to see a pathway. If we're going to put money in, we want to see a result. So if we put 100 grand into something, what does that 100 grand get us? Where is it going to be? What's a milestone? But also beyond the result, how can we maximize the result? We don't go in blind for anything. We have data. Even when we make investments, we know the data of, hey, it's not like going in blind. We know it's getting a 3-to-1, a 4-to-1 return. So we want to put more money into that, because if we can spend $10, we'll spend 10,000 and get 40,000 back. And so again, it's just using the data to be able to understand how we make a calculated investment.
Yeah, that's awesome. Brian, you want to throw your hand in the hat here with anything?
Yeah, sure. My it's funny, we all have different ideas and perspectives on things. My big three things are our team being one. So who's running the ship? Sometimes very quickly you can see if this person has it or not. When times get tough, are they able to get through the trenches? And then who's their supporting cast around them, because you always say you can't do it alone. It's very tough to be a business owner, an entrepreneur, and do everything alone. Two, like kind of Brandon and Kevin were saying, marketing plan, marketing metrics. Is it actually scalable? And then three, the financials around it all. I think Kevin mentioned customer acquisition, lifetime value. Like we've seen so many times where someone creates this great business, great idea. They do all these great things, and then you look at their projections, you look at their financial forecasts, and no matter what they do, they'll never make money. So when looking at any business, you got to make sure the financials are right. Can they scale it? And do they have the right team to implement it and to actually make it happen?
I love it. Okay, you guys stay here because I'm going to round robin all of you because Kevin's brilliant, but you guys are brilliant also. So this is amazing. Kevin, back to you. With changing consumer behavior, how are you guys adjusting sales or marketing strategies in 2025 based on noise and how people are reacting today versus the past?
One of the beautiful things about our business, so that's a great question to ask a Procter & Gamble, okay? Because they do years of research before they launch a product. And we were involved with, we're shooting an infomercial right now. I shot it 2 weeks ago. And our partner, we have a partnership in this deal. And our partner said, hey, look, I think we should get a focus group to take a look at the infomercial before we run it to see what they say, because maybe we'll learn something. And I said, okay, great. Guess what? The focus group is probably going to cost somewhere between 30 to 50 grand. And they're going to give you a bunch of information. And I'll tell you, Tony Robbins did a focus group on his first infomercial back in the late 80s. And the focus group said, we love the show, but we don't like that guy, Tony. Okay. So they're like, and thank God Guthy-Renker still went forward with the deal. Right. So I said to my partner, I said, look, oh, you want to spend 25, 30 to 50 grand, whatever, for a focus group. Guess what? We can spend 5 grand on Facebook. That's our focus group. And it's going to tell us whether we've hit the mark or not. So yes, we do adapt, but we also, at the end of the day, just test. I mean, this is the old test before you invest. You spend too much time researching, adapting, structuring, focus groups, all that. Let Procter & Gamble do that. Brian can tell you a story. I got this little product that I got to find one. I had it right in front of me. It's a little eyeglass cleaner. I think I've talked to you about it before. Mike showed you the Peeps eyeglass cleaner. So we didn't know if this product was going to work. The owner had already sold what he could and he was done. And we spent $500 in media. It generated $2,500 in sales. What did Brandon just tell you? We spent whatever number it did, the toilet product, 4 times what it did on the media. So I didn't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars on focus groups. The orders coming in are telling me I've got something that the people like. Now, what you can do is then dive deeper. Now that you got a winner, now you can dive deeper and find out, okay, who is buying this? What are the demographics? What are the time slots if we're running, on television or whatever, so you can deep dive to try to get sort of a profile. And what do they call that, Brian and Brandon? A mirror or lookalike kind of a situation?
Yeah, the lookalike audiences and whatnot.
Yeah.
Do we still do that?
Oh yeah. And the cool thing too is, just to add on to what you just said, like Happy Toilet, for example. We're shooting right now, I think, Brandon, it's like 5 or 6 videos.
Yeah.
It costs, it doesn't cost that much. We're creating different content different for TikTok than we are for Instagram, that we are for Facebook, and we test it, right? We create different videos so we could test, which content works best and where it works best on which platform also. So, and it's relatively cheap to do that. So, I mean, that's kind of the focus group, like you said.
And also beyond testing. So like we test TikTok, we test Meta, we test YouTube, you name it. We get the data from those platforms, but then we use the success from those platforms to go even to retail. We can go, hey, we're selling this much here. This is approved. So then retail is more open to putting it in their store. So we use the data and the success to open up more distribution channels.
Yeah, well, great info, everybody. Hey, Brian, how are you personally staying ahead of the ever-changing business landscape now?
Well, it's funny because I tell our team this all the time. I ask them, are you scrolling through TikTok? Are you scrolling through Instagram yourself? Because we're marketers, right? So if our team is not personal users of these platforms, we'll never be able to understand and stay up on the trends and how they work. So, honestly, like, we just are consumers of social and look how other people do it and get ideas. And, I mean, that's a big way is to kind of always try to stay in, how everyone, is doing things online ultimately.
Yeah. The other thing, I mean, we used to do a lot of trade shows. Trade shows have changed a little bit, but, I mean, at one time I did 30 trade shows a year to stay in touch. The houseware show, the hardware show, the fitness show, the beauty show, the golf show. And so we don't do 30, but we still do some strategic ones. I was at the PGA Golf Show. We launched some stuff up there. We go to CES. We may be going to the hardware show coming up because we got a hardware product now. But, tuning in to the associations in industries, like the hardware associate, the houseware association that puts on the houseware show. These, you meet people, you serve on board, you get invited to speak, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Brandon, one for you, and pitch it if it's not the best for you. When are you getting into investing in a company because you want to build to sell? And are you ever getting into a company where you guys say, you know what, it's a cash flow. Let's just keep it till it's dead someday?
So one thing we've done recently is we've put a phase process to even get to the point where we invest our own money. We've been working with a company for at least a year. Now, there are some cases that we don't do that. And so we go through a phase one, a phase two. And once we do get to that point, we ultimately want to ask ourselves, if we're going to put money into this, what is the liquidation? So like we can get equity all day, but the equity is only worth something if they're going to exit, they're going to go public, or obviously like a product can get cash along the way. So that's one thing that we do look at. And I mean, an example for Happy Toilet, I keep going back to that. We will make money every single month from the profits of the business. But what we'll ultimately do once we really understand our acquisition costs, and let's say we're spending $100,000 a month, we'll ask ourselves, how do we get to $300,000-$400,000 a month, which means we're going to get a multiple return. Not only will we potentially invest our own money, but we'll go out and raise capital to scale this to 100 million. And so that's what we look at. Hey, where's the pathway to getting our money back? And how do we get a return on that investment?
Yeah, that's great. Kevin, Jay Abraham told me once, he goes, you start helping people, like maybe the stage one, and then people grow and then they get amnesia on how the hell they actually started to grow. And then they want to get out of a deal like they don't need you. Do you ever deal with anything like that anymore?
I mean, I won't name any names, but a woman came to us. She had one location, and she said, what should I do? And, the word franchise came up, and we're like, oh, so, let's look at a franchising situation. So we helped her put all that together, started selling franchises. I was branding myself as the guy with her. She sold how many franchises, Brian?
Oh, I think it was over 100, was it?
Over 100.
Yeah.
And then she sued us, okay? Because she said she didn't want to give us any equity. And so she comes up with some bullshit, you didn't do this or that. I mean, here is a woman that would have, and I'm not mentioning any names, so, but I got to tell you, we ended up settling for nothing and getting out of the whole thing, but nothing meaning nothing of hers, just go. Because that's what someone told her. Hey, if you want to own all of it, just sue the guys, and they'll tell you you can drop the suit, and they'll bail out. So some people are devious like that. So but I always say karma is a bitch, and I haven't checked in to see how she's doing, but we're not there anymore. I don't know what she's up to, but God bless. It may be not going to go so well for her long term, in my opinion, making decisions like that.
Yeah. Kevin, when you look at, let's say you have these small business owners, and some of them are pretty small minded. Talk about doing how much faster a small company could move, even if they give up some equity in advisory shares or equity in partnerships. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I will. And then Brian and Brandon have 2 minutes before they got to run. So I'm going to let Brandon.
Yeah, we're walking into a meeting right now. I apologize.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
We'll say
all right.
bye.
So you got to run. Go ahead.
Yeah.
All
right,
right,
got to
guys.
run, guys.
Thanks,
They got
guys.
11.
Take care, guys.
We're in
Make
New
a
York
good
City.
deal.
Okay. Thanks, guys. So what was the question again?
Yeah, like doing if someone is a small company, of giving up either what they would call like advisory shares, I'm going to give you equity and I'm going to advise you, or bringing in somebody to partner with. How much faster can you go with a board of support versus trying to just figure it out alone?
I'll say this. The best example of that is this product that I launched 12 years ago, Celsius. Okay. So when I got there, I joined the board. I had a 10-year consulting agreement. I got a block of stock up front. I earned stock every month and a fee for 10 years. And this company went from 2 million to 10 billion. And it was only because I was able to talk the board into loosening up a couple of shares. First of all, for me to join the board. Secondly, for a couple of big celebrities and Flo Rida and the Kardashians and this and that. And all of a sudden we then also, I brought in a connection of mine over in Hong Kong. He owned 25,000 stores over there. He wanted the rights to Celsius for Asia. But, so we worked him into the deal with some shares, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm a huge believer. You can own 100% of your company. Let's call it a pie. You own 100% of your pie. Now, sometimes owning 95% of a much bigger pie is going to give you a lot more. Just the one thing to be careful with is losing control and making sure. Sometimes investors will put a fancy operating agreement together, and be careful of operating agreements because they can do good or bad either way. They could be good for the investor or bad for the investor.
Yeah. What is, if you could give, knowing what you know now, if you could go back 20 years or further before you were, doing partnerships, equity deals, what are two things that you say, knowing what you know now, these are two cardinal rules of yours?
Two things? Oh, let's see. Well, I would say, I'll be honest with you. 20 years ago, I was very happy sitting in the As Seen on TV business. I own As Seen on TV Inc., AsSeenOnTV.com. And we did product after product with Tony Little, Jack LaLanne, George Foreman, Kim Kardashian, Paris Hilton, you name it. We worked with the best of the best and did billions of dollars. But there's one thing that I never cared about at all. And that was, I was building Billy Mays' brand, Tony Little's brand, Jack LaLanne's brand. All these brands I'm building. I forgot to build my own. So that's the one thing that I learned is, you write a book, you start speaking. I mean, I'll lay the story out. I had him, it was down with Richard Branson in Necker Island. And he's like, Kevin, you didn't brand yourself. You really need to start doing stuff. I said, where would you start if you were me? He said, go home, write a book, and then promote the book. And he says, Kevin, I got dozen plus books. Okay. He says, I'm in hot air balloons creating videos. He said, so write the book, do the videos, build your brand. And I did. And I was doing all of that. And who was watching? Mark Burnett, from Shark Tank. And that's how I got the call to be a shark on Shark Tank, because I focused on something 20 years ago I never even thought about, which was building my brand. So that's something in today's world. I mean, believe it or not, the Happy Toilet, you just heard about it here. In 6 weeks, a bunch of you on this line are going to say, damn it, I saw that. I just saw some ads on the Happy Toilet, because it's coming, right? We're branding it. And so that's a big thing, number one. Secondly, I would say this. In the old days, it was really difficult to raise capital. I mean, to raise money, you had to find just, basically an investment banker or wealthy investors or angels. And I think in today's world, I mean, first of all, you got Stripe throwing, hey, we'll lend you money, and Shopify, and everyone's throwing money at you. No, do a crowdfunding, raise $250,000. Somebody gets sick, they GoFundMe page. It's like, I mean, I do think there, without going crazy or dishonest in this fashion, I think there's a good way to tie in to some capital strategies today. Entrepreneurs, there's SBA opportunities. There's way more ways to get capital today than there was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Kevin, if someone's going to build a portfolio of some companies, tell me who's the key on the team that you have when you're thinking about building out this team to help manage it? Like, you got Brandon and Brian. What roles should we have?
So, it's funny. Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, one night on Shark Tank, and it's filming the show. O'Leary like, hey, I bet on the jockey, and you're the jockey, and I'm betting on you. Well, I'll say this: a lot of people say that they bet on the jockey. Well, I have a buddy. He's a trainer of horses, Kenny McPeak. He's a Triple Crown winner, just won the Kentucky Derby recently. And Kenny says, I spend years training those horses, walking them, medical, shots, doctors, everything. And then I bring him to the track, and the jockey jumps on it and runs around the track for 2 minutes. Okay. He says, without the right trainer. And I said, so really what I'm hearing here, it's not, the very first deal I did on Shark Tank, I bet on the jockey. It was one woman. I gave her $500,000. 6 months later, she closed the doors and said, goodbye, you're out of your money. And actually sent me some unpaid invoices on top of that. And I said, why am I getting this? I mean, what's wrong? It's like, well, hey, I bet on the jockey, but she needed a dream team. And that's what Brian was talking about earlier. You need finance people. And, in the old days, I'd hire a CFO and just pay him a big salary. Well, guess what? Today, there's something called fractional. You got fractional CFOs and CEOs and marketing guys and this and that. And so I believe that you just need to, really focus on these opportunities that we're discussing.
Yeah. How do you feel about the, just in general, about the future of the world with AI, humanoid robots and everything? Are you super excited about this stuff?
I am excited because it's here. It's sort of, when the internet first came out and there was all kinds of things going on, some people embraced it, and those that embraced it the most made fortunes. Others held back, and they're like, I just don't know about this. I'm not ready for it, whatever, jumping in, giving all my information out to everyone all over the place. But, I think that, AI is going to be a game changer. The key thing is using it in an ethical, legal fashion, because, I think there was a video already of Donald Trump kissing Kamala Harris or something. It's like, that we know that that's fake, but, it's like there will be some tough times with AI and the competition in that area. But I just believe that the smart people that stay ahead of the curve, and, Mike, I don't know how you guys are tracking AI or testing with things or whatever, but it's a good thing for you to be able, for you to do for your team that's on this call also. But for us, yes, I mean, it's a little early. We're not using AI for marketing yet, but once those opportunities come to the table, that's what I look for. How do I use AI for customer acquisition?
Yeah, we actually have Kevin, a fractional AI officer on our team,
Nice.
just to stay ahead of the trends here. One last question for you here before I let you go. Talk to everybody about, no matter what stage or different stages they're at in business and life, how should they think about wealth, investing, a portfolio, a stocks, real estate? What are your beliefs?
I'm sorry, Mike, say it one more time.
Yeah,
I
so
get distracted.
thinking about wealth, and
Yeah.
for anybody on here, no matter what stage they're in their business and life, how do you think about wealth? If you think about real estate, or you think about business, or stock portfolio, what are your theories?
Well, so I mean, in the old days, and I like to talk about the old days because I'm an old entrepreneur. But you know, my father always said to me, "Don't keep all your eggs in one basket," right? And I was in the Ask Stephen TV business, and I said, "But Dad, you know, I'm not." You know, I'm launching product after product. He's like, yeah, but you're still in the same business. What happens if that business goes down? And what happened was television viewership plummeted. And yes, I had all my eggs in that one basket. And thank God I was smart enough to sell it 12 years ago to a public company and came out smelling like a rose. So so I think the bottom line is it, you know, I then said, after I sold that company, I said, okay, now I get what my dad's talking about. I need to diversify. I need to, be in treasury bonds. I need to be in stocks. I need to be in real estate. I need, my portfolio is percentages of the portfolio in certain categories, and be careful. I used to be a big stock player, but I'd invest in one stock, a couple million, and wait for it to go up 10 or 20% and sell out. But if it goes down 10 or 20%, you lose. So my advisors won't let me do that, put such a high concentration of something into one stock. Because some people may have said, hey, NVIDIA is going to the moon, let's back it, but I think it's down 8% this week or something. You know what I'm saying? So you got to be careful. But I just think that allocation of your assets in certain ways, and maybe you heavy up on the areas, like if you happen to be very smart in real estate, doesn't mean you couldn't have 20 or 25% of your assets in real estate, flipping houses or whatever, but don't just put 100%. I know somebody that bought, they were flipping, and we live in Florida, and he had flipped 5 or 6 homes. He bought one for 300, put 100 in it, sold it for 6. Nice little model. Took him 6 months, right? Well, then he started upping it, and he's like, well, hey, I'm making couple $100,000 on these $300,000 homes. Wonder if I bought an $800,000 home, maybe I could make $500,000. So he went out and bought 3 or 4 of those. And then what happened? And then used all of his assets. The market turned and dropped, and he ended up losing on all of those big ones, and it just destroyed him. And so don't take all your money and put it, destroyed him. And so don't take all your money and put it into one classification. Diversify and focus on the stuff that you're good at in the process.
Kevin, one quick question. What's one great thing lesson your mom taught you, and one great lesson your kids taught you?
No, that's a good question. Well, my mom was very religious, and I'm a Catholic boy. I was an altar boy in grade school. I went to an all boys Catholic high school with priests teaching. And my 50th high school reunion is in a few weeks. Actually, it's in April. So my mother was all about, do unto others as you would, my mother was all about, do unto others as you would do under, let me make sure I say it the right way, but take care of other people also. I've always had the attitude of looking out for the other guy. In fact, in my book, Mentor to Millions, I talk about that, I've done deals and I'm sitting at the negotiating table and a guy said, hey, I'm going to give you 45% of my company. And I'm like, I'd sit with my guys and I come back and say, let us talk about it. We get back and we say, you know what? This is what we're interested in. We want 25%. He said, what do you mean? He said, at 45%, you're going to be calling us every day. You're going to want us, you're going to say, guys, I gave you 45% of the company. You need to be equal in time and effort and this and that.
Yeah.
He said, we don't want 45. We don't deserve it. We don't want it. And because we don't want to fight down the road that, why did you guys get 45% for what you bring to the table? So we'd like to do a fair deal. And this really came from my mother. And back in the day, she was God bless her, but she went to church 6 days a week. And
Wow.
when I was an altar boy, I did 5 or 6 days a week myself. But bottom line is, I think that my wife even says, Kevin, you give so much to so many people. Why do you do that? I said, it's going to come back. I've launched my own foundation. We've got a big golf tournament. I don't know if you play golf, but we've got, if anyone's interested, we have on May 6th or 7th, it's a Tuesday, doing a big money raise for my foundation for junior achievement and entrepreneurship for kids. So, I think that's from my mother and from my kids.
Yeah.
I hate to admit this, and my son's gone now, but my first marriage was not successful, and that was Brian's mother. And we got divorced, and now I moved to Florida, and I married a second time. I've been 20 years with my second wife. Our 18th anniversary is next week, and so one of the things that I've watched my son, and he has 3 kids, 8, 6, and 4, and I know that when I was an entrepreneur, building my businesses and traveling the world to 100 countries, my son was back home primarily with his mother. And I lived in Florida. He lived in Philly. I had joint custody and I saw him every month. But I will say that being a good parent, a good father, a good mother, for those that fit either role, that is so important. And I was a little selfish, and I'll say, I watch my son and he comes to Florida and I say, Brian, do you want to play some golf one day? He says, I can't leave the kids. We're going to be at the beach. And, so he's taught me, that, and it's probably because those were things in his mind when he was growing up. Boy, I wish I had more of my dad. And so I've learned a little bit about that. And that's why I said to my wife, I'm semi-retired now. I don't work. I used to work 80, 90 hours a week. And right now, if I work 20 to 25, play golf a couple days, I'm focused. I'm hanging with the family, hanging with the kids, hanging with the grandkids. And that is an important thing, to make sure that you support your family's the most important thing.
Yeah. Wow. Everybody give some love in the chat bar to Kevin. Kevin, thank you for being a friend and a mentor, and super excited to have you today.
Hey, you bet, guys. And Brandon and Brian, we're excited to be here. And there's some things we can all do together.
Yeah. Love it.